right, guys, welcome back to Of Stone and Clay, episode 77. We're here with Isaiah Bailey. Thanks so much for joining, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Isaiah is a singer, Broadway actor, vocal coach, member of the King Will Come worship group.
Yes.
Of all those things, like singing, acting, teaching, if you had to remove one from your life, what would you remove? It's hard because they're all so connected, I'm sure.
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
I'd say acting. Only because acting has kind of been my avenue to get to where I want to musically.
Oh, okay.
In a way.
Yeah.
Acting was kind of thrown upon me.
Mm-hmm.
I would consider myself a really good actor, but
most of your roles are musical anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten really into straight plays or TV and film just yet. I would love to, but if I had the opportunity to do more music than acting, I would choose that. I think.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Do you write original stuff as well?
I do. I don't write as much as I would like to.
Is it hiding somewhere in the vault?
Yes, I have about maybe 500 voice memos.
Oh wow!
Of
ideas
that have come to my mind just randomly that I have not gone back to look at.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm thinking of possibly making an EP of 30-second voice memos that I've come up with.
That's kind of cool.
And just kind of make a story out of those voice memos that have come to my head. Usually they come to me when I'm going through something or if I randomly see something while I'm driving or something.
Yeah, something that inspires you.
A song like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, I met Isaiah maybe 3 days ago.
Yes. Yes.
I've known about you for the last year or so because I'm connected with the King Will Come.
Yes.
I have a lot of close friends there, but the main reason I wanted to interview you is because I love people that I can tell are very open, and I can tell there's not a lot of ego attached to them, despite having a lot of amazing gifts. And the thing that moved me the most was the other night we're all kind of hanging out and jamming. I'm not jamming, I'm hanging out. But we were all for our friend Ashley Hess, who's been on the show and who gave me this shirt.
Yes.
Happy Humans, Sad Songs.
Yes.
Which I couldn't relate to more. It was her birthday, and so everyone was they'd go perform one of their songs and then they would talk about why they love Ashley.
Yes.
And I thought that was so beautiful.
Amazing.
And I loved what you went up there and you literally just pulled a song out of the ether and kind of sang to her what you love about her.
Yes.
But to me, I couldn't get over how beautiful it was in improvisation. And not coming from a musical background, it was just what is he doing up there? I can't, I understand, I'm decent with words. So I feel like I could, if I had an hour, I could sit down and write something maybe similar.
Absolutely.
But to in the moment, do all that with what to the virgin ear sounded like perfect tone, perfect range, perfect everything. I was just so impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What how long did it take you to feel comfortable being so improvisational with your music? Because I'm sure that's part of worship leading, part of the theater a little bit. But what makes you so confident with your skills to just be I can sing whatever I want and
That's a great question. Thank you. I am very self-conscious about my writing ability because I don't do it enough, and I am not necessarily good with words. I don't study words like that. I would love to. And in that, I feel like my vocabulary is very limited. And in the limitations, I sometimes get a little discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to encourage myself, I just sing what I feel.
Okay.
So that night I wasn't feeling discouraged, but I was like, man, I'm just so behind. All of these people are working on their music and doing amazing things with their music, and I have really nothing to show for.
Yeah. And you kind of needed to be prodded a little bit to even get up there.
Yes, because I actually wasn't feeling well that night. I had my allergies were just on another level of irritating.
Yeah.
So I was gonna just rest that night, but I felt the unction, like I needed to sing. I called that singing over a person.
Okay.
And it's like when I'm looking at them, whatever I feel in that moment for them, or I feel like for me, what God is saying to them, or what I feel God wants them to know, or how he sees them. And so
it's kind of a blessing.
It is. Yeah. It is definitely that. Yeah. It's definitely a blessing. And so I know that's not something that a lot of people do or are comfortable doing, but because I'm uncomfortable with like writing, I'm very comfortable with just like on the
just
spot,
listening to your heart.
Just listening to my heart, and just let it flow. Even if it doesn't, I've come to the point where I just let go of like it not rhyming and such. Yeah. Just as long as it makes sense.
Right.
So that's something I've developed in the last few years, of just being comfortable with singing over people.
Yeah. Would you start doing that with like in your worship? Or with friends or family?
I started in college. I say a few years ago. It's been a long time.
College is always a few years ago.
Right. It seems like, I mean, I've been out of college for 10 years, so which is crazy to me.
What did you study, by the way?
I studied vocal performance. So I have a Bachelor of Music in vocal performance.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Yeah, in college, we had this community group, and I don't know how it started, but one night I remember just one of our friends in the group was going through something, and I just felt like I needed to sing what I felt over them.
Yeah.
And that's actually where it started, and I've been doing that for a while.
Wow.
So in worship settings, I will find myself feeling the room, or feeling like there is a person that really needs to hear this message. So I will sing what I hear and what I feel.
Yeah.
Or I feel like there's a group of people that they came specifically for this, and there is a specific answer or word or phrase that they need to hear to move forward.
Yeah.
So I have been doing that for quite some time, and I really didn't realize that it happened in college. Until this moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so cool. It's funny, when you started singing that song, I was like, oh, I've never heard this song. Right? and then I was like, oh, it must be an original, you know? But then I was like, I turned to my buddy Spencer. I was like, is he just like free flowing over here? And he's like, yeah.
It's so cool. Cause I'm also very comfortable in the space that we're in, and felt so encouraged, because that's what a lot of those people in that room do. And when we are like rehearsing, it always turns into a new song. There's something that comes up, a reprise or something, and we're writing something new off of one word or phrase, and that just pumps my heart, because it's what I love to do, because I don't have to really think about, okay, does this line fit here? Does this word rhyme? Does it make sense? And it's like we're just repeating a phrase. And the reason why I think sometimes it's repeated is so that it really takes root in someone's heart.
Yeah. So
that they can feel and know the truth behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to, so my buddy roommate Spencer, he's the one that kind of introduced me to worship music, right? And it's funny because it's just not something I was used to.
Yeah.
I've always been Christian and very passionate about my faith, and so I've loved lyrics that talk about faith in God.
Yes.
But worship music to me, I would be like, well, bro, it's an 11-minute song and the chorus is 9 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
And there's, if you look up the lyrics, there's 10 words.
Yes, 10 words.
Right.
Yes.
And they're not all like that,
Right.
but
yes.
it took me a while to realize kind of the point of it.
Yes.
Like you said, it like, at first to me, it felt monotonous. It felt like just too much.
Yes.
But then I realized, yeah, as you're singing along and stuff, it kind of starts to tattoo itself into your heart a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I love about it, it's especially music that is, well, when it comes to Christian music or worship music, hopefully it's flowing from the Word of God, and there's truth. And so a lot of people relate to music and can connect to God through music. And so if you have that truth coming through music, that song will come to you, know, in a moment, or you have it in your heart, and you can always pull that out. And sometimes, like for me, if the Bible was all sung, I probably would be reading it more than I do now.
Yeah.
But it is I don't want to say it's a task, but it's a discipline to get into the Word of God and to study, really dig deep. And in that, I feel like it's very challenging. And sometimes we want the easy way out, and so worship music is sometimes the easy way out.
Yeah.
We depend on worship music to give us that truth, when there could be actually some more depth to that truth that you can find in I know that you can find in the Word of God if you dig deep. Deeper in your study. So that's I've never said that before, but I'm talking to myself, as I say that,
Yeah, that's cool. I love, like, I'm of the LDS persuasion, right? And the whole worship scene is just, it's culturally very different from how we worship, right? But what I've loved is just seeking truth anywhere.
Absolutely.
Right? Even if there's little things and nuances I disagree with or don't connect with, let me go and find the good and not focus on things that are a little bit maybe outside of my comfort zone or outside of the milieu of what I'm used to, And so I've loved it. Like last night there was a worship show that you guys put on, and I just loved looking around. There's people just weeping, and they're just communing with God, and they're experiencing things. And it's a little bit more like our church is there's a lot of focus on reverence and peace and stillness. And so it's just a different kind of worship, right? And I think there's a place for both.
Absolutely.
And depending on your personality, like some people will go to the worship night and they'll be like, it's too loud. It's too much. But yeah, I think people should open their hearts to doing new things that involve truth.
I love that. A few nights ago, we were rehearsing for the concert, and we were rehearsing the song that I sing. And I didn't know that we were going to be rehearsing that song that night until about 4 minutes before. I was like, okay. So I had already been feeling the presence of God, as we were having dinner and such. And so I was in the corner just kind of by myself, just thanking God for his presence. And I felt like there was going to be some kind of amazing breakthrough or something for us all in that space that night. And I didn't know that it was going to start with me having to be very vulnerable and sharing some very dark parts of my story. And from that moment, I was able to receive some major breakthrough and healing. And in me doing that, it opened the door for many people in the room to experience God's presence in a very beautiful way. And someone asked me the question, um, how do you remain? No, how did he phrase it? I forget how he phrased the question, but I remember my answer, and it was I encourage people to try something new with their worship,
Hmm.
because it's just, yeah, it was basically getting out of your comfort zone, and allowing yourself to just to be and feel, what you feel in that time, but try changing it up and let your response be something different. If you're someone that is um, more loud and jumpy and doing all these things, I grew up from a Pentecostal background, and so that's what we do.
Right.
Run around.
Just high energy.
Yes, high energy. And so I encourage to say, well, take a moment to just be still and reverence what you see going on and what you sense. And then I encourage those that are more reverent and more silent to come out of the silence for a moment and maybe jump around or just wave your hands around. And it was just a beautiful reminder for me, because I'm learning that this life is all about balance.
Yeah.
Everything is about balance, and there is a balance when it comes to how we respond to our God, and how we invite Him. But I will say, there's never a balance in the amount of us that we bring to Him. Should always be 100%.
Yeah.
But I guess how we respond, there could be balance there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It was a long answer. Sorry.
No, that's great. That's why it's a podcast. But I think like this is much harder, but I think if you want to feel that same connection you feel with God, I think when you bring 100% of yourself to anything, to your creative work, to your relationships, you get that same, you get kind of, I don't know, a parcel of that connection you get with God.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're kind of holding some back, it's hard to feel fully fulfilled in anything you're doing. If you're kind of giving even 80 or 90%, it's easy to feel like, I don't know, just not as satisfied or fulfilled.
I agree.
I love what you said about, worshiping in new ways. I just read this book, The Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
Okay.
And he was talking about how a lot of times as a producer, artists will just get kind of stuck on a song or, stuck on a bridge or something that they just can't get past. And he says he likes to just kind of strip it down and be like, let's try something you never do and you're not used to. Let's do this whole thing acoustic. Let's do this. Let's record this in a completely different way. Let's use, drums when we never use drums, And I think that's a great way to approach your creativity and a great way to approach your spirituality, a great way to approach maybe, like you were saying earlier, if you need healing, maybe you've only ever done one thing. You've just been fixated on professional therapy, but you haven't done any spiritual work. Like, I think, sometimes we get stymied, but we're just so focused on what we've only ever done, Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
What got you into being a worship leader? So you grew up Pentecostal. I assume your family is very religious and active in that community.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've always grown up singing, and my mom and I grew up in this church and was in this church for about 12 years. Um, within the denomination, excuse me. And we left the church for a little bit, which was very challenging for me, because it was completely different. It was the same but different, and that's where I spent a lot of time, and all my friends were
How old
part of
were you?
church. 12 or 13, I think. But then started to really like the church that we were going to, and got involved in their worship team. And from that is where I kind of began to learn the art, I would guess I could say it like that, the art of worship leading.
Could you define that for someone who's not very familiar with, because I would say, what would you say, like most evangelical or non-denominational churches have a worship leader, kind of in lieu of, or maybe not in lieu of, but in addition to a pastor or reverend or whatever.
Yes. So within our church, we have the pastor, and then we'll have what we would consider, what some churches would consider, like a worship pastor that's in charge of everything music in the church. Well, sometimes you'll have like a music and arts pastor or something, and then you have like different leaders with under that person that's like maybe like an overseer or a manager of like all things music or all things art, all things media within the church, depending on what your church needs. So with the church that I switched to or moved to, was we had what we call a worship team or a worship band, and so I was one of the singers within the worship team, and in that there will be occasions where I would lead a song or lead a few songs and have to what we call exalt, not exalt, but is that the word? Basically encourage and
exhort.
Thank you. Exhort is the word I was looking for.
You knew there was an E and an X.
Yes, truly. I told you, bad with words.
Whatever, you said unction earlier.
Yes.
That's a high level vocab word.
It's something that we use in like church. It's a church word to me, like unction. But we would exhort, during worship, like helping to invite people into worship and praise in the time that we had before the sermon or before the time of offering, then the sermon, and then sometimes after the sermon as well, for what we would call like the altar call, where people would come up for prayer and such. So then I left that church and went to another church for a little while.
Are these all Pentecostal?
So a form of Pentecost, I grew up in a church called Church of God in Christ, which is a denomination of Pentecostal. It stems from the Pentecostal church. It's just, I think there's a few differences. There's the difference in baptism and what they say. I believe in Pentecostal, it's Father, Son, being baptized in Jesus' name. And then in the acronym is COGIC, COGIC, Church of God in Christ. It's baptized Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. That's one of the differences there. The form of Pentecostal that I left from the one I grew up in was like similar, with very high spirited, believe in the gifts of the Spirit, speaking in tongues, all that such. But this was a Judaic Pentecostal church.
Oh, interesting.
And so we,
is that similar to the Messianic Jews?
similar, yes. So we would celebrate some of the Jewish holidays. We didn't eat pork, all that. But the difference in this church is like the women wore pants at this other church I grew up in. Women couldn't wear pants, makeup, hair.
Like, did they wear a veil?
No, I wasn't. It wasn't that deep of Pentecostal.
Okay,
that's more apostolic.
Okay.
There's so many.
Yeah. It's funny. I not to cut you off,
no,
but so I served an LDS mission in Brazil, and Brazil is very Catholic, but where I was at in Rio was especially evangelical. So yeah, I ran into every evangelical church under the sun, and so I just have kind of bits and pieces of a million churches.
Yes. And I am still very ignorant to all of the beliefs and such within the Pentecostal faith. There's just so much. There's so much. But in the Judaic Pentecostal church, it was basically like the one I grew up in, but it was less legalistic. And when I say legalistic, working toward your salvation and doing a lot of doing to earn the love of God, or to earn the blessings and such, and living holy was a big thing. Holiness, a big theme within the Pentecostal church all around is holiness is right. Or holiness, what is it? Holiness or hell.
Okay.
It's very interesting because a lot of times within the church, it's holiness is, when I grew up, was all about what you wear and looking holy. But many a times people looked holy but were rotten inside. And we're fighting because we weren't getting deep into the inner and really cleaning, allowing the Lord to clean the inner man. So we were going fishing and expecting the fish to come up scaled and ready to eat. But holiness is a process. Sanctification is a process. And a lot of times it was like, you need to do this right now. It's, it's instant, but it is a process because you have however long it's taken you to accept Christ and to walk after him. Sometimes it's going to take a little bit longer to allow your body to walk, to follow Christ, or to walk with that mindset, and to expect a person to shift that instantly is hard. And then that's where the judgment comes in, where, you're judging a person because they're stumbling and falling. They have a lot of self-work to do, and a lot of work to do with the Holy Spirit, to allow him to change them, and them not try to change themselves. Because when we try to change ourselves, without the Holy Spirit, we end up falling back. And because we're working in our own strength, and it's in his strength, in our weakness, his strength is made perfect. You know? So
you know what is interesting about judgment? I feel like judgment is this weird cycle where a lot of times you're judging others for their sin or whatever, or their weaknesses, but then you get over that, and a lot of people start to judge people that are judging others, right? And so it's so interesting. You hear people all the time be like, "Oh, they're so judgmental," and I can't believe that, like, they're so hypocritical and they're always judging. And I'm like, what are we doing right now?
Yes.
But it's this interesting cycle I feel like people fall into.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I feel like I am a part of so many different communities and so many diverse and interesting communities. And in the theater community, a lot of, well, there are a lot of people that are not believers in Christ,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of people that are believers,
Yeah.
And have different beliefs, even in believing in Christ.
Yeah.
And something that I've found that the majority of the theater community is very, very loving and welcoming until until you mention God a lot of times, or you mention this, or they don't want to hear about it, and so it's sometimes not as welcoming as they think.
Yeah.
And forgetting, like, they're saying that, oh, the Christians are, they're always judgy, or this, that, and the other, and not realizing that they're doing the exact same thing. And something that I've learned, again, in balance, is that whatever you believe, however you're living your life, you have to be, you don't have to agree, but you have to be accepting to other people. And I really feel like that's why I've been so involved in the theater community, and also been so involved in the church as a bridge builder to those communities, because a lot of people in the theater community want nothing to do with the church, want nothing to do with Christ, because of people.
Sure.
And forgetting that people are not God. We are supposed to be representation of God, but we're human. And I think we as Christians sometimes put ourselves on a pedestal and are judgmental, which, pushes those people away.
Yeah.
And then, vice versa, the theater community or whomever else, are thinking that they are, better than the Christian community. And so we are both at odds with each other, when there's a lot in common.
Yeah.
We just need to put down our egos, humble ourselves,
right,
and find where we are alike, and how we can love each other in the midst of differences. But a lot of people don't want to be challenged in that area, because it is very challenging to build relationship and to find love in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah. That's why I love like AA's thing about just calling it a higher power, and not focusing on what exactly that even means. And so if you're in that organization, you could even be an atheist, but they encourage you to figure out some sort of higher power and put that above yourself. And so, like we were talking about earlier, in the car, I think even if you're an atheist or you don't have any connection to religion, like, you can find commonality in faith. Absolutely. And you can find commonality in just belief and in spirituality. And because spirituality doesn't need to be connected to religion, it is when you're religious, but it doesn't have to be.
Absolutely.
Because I think, and also people get really caught up on semantics, like what does spiritual mean?
Right.
And it's like, it means whatever you want it to mean. If you feel a certain spirituality being in the mountains, or being, driving by a beautiful lake and seeing a beautiful cloud formation, if that touches you and you want to call it spiritual, great. If you want to just say it's beautiful, then who cares? It's all the same thing, How important do you find it in your art, in your worship, in acting, in singing? How important is it to you to be very present?
It is very important to me. But sometimes I find myself, especially if I'm in a show where I'm doing the same thing over and over again, it's hard to be present.
Yeah.
You have to really challenge yourself and really focus, because your body could do the whole show
on
without even
autopilot.
on autopilot,
Yeah.
without even thinking. And one thing that helps me to remain present, especially being this last show that I was in, the Lion King National Tour.
You were Mufasa, right?
I was the Mufasa understudy.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yes. So I was in the ensemble. So I had the opportunity to walk through the audience every day during Circle of Life. And that scene in itself will draw you to be present. You could be thinking about so many other things.
But it's so interactive.
It's so interactive, and it's so real for people. It's like they're being invited to come into the story, and we want you to be a part of the story. So that's why we're starting with our show, with us involving the audience in this scene and watching people every day that we performed. There's always someone that's just like just so excited, and the kids' faces, and the older people, the parents just weeping because it's like their childhood coming to life, and the costumes, everything,
and they're making their kids' days.
Yes, their days are being made because their kids' days are being made, and it's also so nostalgic for people, and they get a chance to revisit. Probably a very happy time of their childhood of watching the movie.
Right.
And so that was something that really helped me to remain present, is seeing those people out there, and then remembering that we have the opportunity, I had the opportunity to change somebody's life that day for the better, and inspire and encourage, or even open up a space in someone's heart that's been closed off for them to receive, some love and compassion. So that was one of the ways that I remain present. So yes, I do believe it is very important to remain present. In my worship leading, I have to be present, because I'm leading people. I'm inviting people into a time of reverence, into a time of, what's the word? A time where we just get to praise and worship God, which is a beautiful and holy thing. And so there are times where I'm distracted.
Sure.
My brain is going different ways. Sound could not be working or something, or, someone in the audience may be distracting, or the lyric screen isn't working. You have all these different distractions.
Or you're going through something personally.
I was just about to say, or I'm going through something personally, which happens to me quite a bit. Excuse me. I'm always going through something. And in those moments, I find that my issues are, or the things that I'm walking through are, they're more present too, because I feel like it's an invitation for me to lay them down. Because I'm entering into the presence of God corporately with other people. And a lot of times as worship leaders, we have to lay that all aside so that we can lead other people in. But something that I'm noticing is that, just like, people coming to see a show, and they want to see real acting, and real acting is just realness. They don't want to see someone acting. They want to see a real story happening, a real person. And so that's something that I've learned in my worship leading, is that no one wants to see a perfect person up there. They don't want to see, or maybe they do, but like, I want to help break that mindset that you need to have someone perfect leading you.
You just want to look very human.
Yes.
Someone very
Yes.
connectable.
Yes. So that you know that you also have this same connection and that you can connect to God outside of the four walls in your home, in your car, walking, wherever you are. You have this same ability to connect to the Lord.
Yeah.
And the worship leader is just there to help facilitate the space.
Yeah.
Like a moderator in a way, and just welcoming and keeping it flowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is, I find it easier in worship leading to be present because you have to be in tune with what's happening in the room. But like in shows as well, you have to be present depending on what you're doing too.
Right. I'm sure at the end of like a run, it's harder to be present.
Absolutely.
Because you've done a show 100 times. Yeah.
Yes. I just finished 2 years of The Lion King.
So how many shows per year are you doing?
If there are 365 days, 320.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you're fully on the road. How often are you performing in New York during that run?
So we're primarily on the road.
Okay.
We don't go to New York. Well, we did go to upstate New York during my run there.
Yeah. Because the Broadway show
is still going on. So Broadway probably will never end. The tour is probably never going to end either.
Gotcha.
So the tour is just the extension of Broadway so that more people have the ability to see the show.
Okay. So there's like a Broadway team and a touring ensemble team.
So sometimes people feel like the tour is different than the Broadway show, but it's the exact same. There are a few differences with like set pieces, but it's the exact same show.
Yeah. So
same company.
In a show like that that's so big and global, is there any room for improvisation, or do they want it very like this?
They want it as they wrote it. Yeah. And the intention is the same. Now, being that this show is over 25 years old,
it evolves a little bit.
And the director may want to change some things. And so sometimes that change is translated to all companies. There's so many Lion King companies across the world. And sometimes it's not. So you may get to one company and it may be a little bit different with the intention or the staging, blocking, and such. But the lines and the intent of the entire story never changes.
Sure.
I'd say the most improv that you're going to get are from the hyenas.
Okay.
During the scene, what is it called? It's right before the stampede. They have a little scene before the wildebeest are coming down. So, in our show, it was really, really cool. Our hyenas would occasionally find something funny about the city, or like if Super Bowl is happening, they'd say something about the Super Bowl. It's really, really great because the audience loved those moments.
Right. Has that been your favorite role ever, or have you had? I mean, it's probably your biggest role ever, but have you had ones that have been more maybe artistically fulfilling?
Being a part of the Lion King family is just, it's an honor because the show has such a deep legacy.
Yeah.
It is the world's #1 musical.
Wow.
And
that's iconic.
It is. Yeah. And to be a part of that is so humbling, and I am so honored to say that I'm a part of the Lion King family. In that, I know that there are more things in me to do. I was a part of the ensemble, which I was very grateful to be a part of. But after so long, because I am a leading man, I found myself feeling like I was losing that portion of the leading man. I was losing my talent and my giftings because it wasn't being used.
You weren't stretching yourself.
I wasn't stretched. And many of our, ensemble members are not stretched in that way. There's so many things that they can do, but because we were so busy with the show,
Yeah.
it is challenging to do that. It's challenging to go out and find classes, though many of us do that. Like,
Yeah.
I taught a lot of master classes.
Yeah, you have a show 320 days a
Yes,
year.
truly, and some on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, doing 2 shows a day. And so it's challenging because your body is tired to go out and find a class,
Yeah.
to be taking this course. We have some cast members, because Disney provides this program where they will pay for a master's degree. And they have different degrees that a person can choose from. And so we had some cast members that are working on their masters.
Yeah.
Me, I was working, almost full time teaching voice while also doing the show. And so my schedule was filled with that. And like most people make their routine from, working out. Their day starts with working out, and then everything else will fall up in line. But that used to be my thing. I would make my schedule around my workout. But that shifted when I started teaching more. And so within the last 6 months, I probably worked out maybe 15 times, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, it's very challenging to be in a space where you're grateful to be there, but you know that there's so much more that you can do.
Yeah. So yeah, that's probably, I mean, it's ultimately probably one of those things that you loved so much, but kind of happy that you can move forward. Yeah.
It was a challenging position to be in, because with the contract that I was on with Lion King, I could stay however long I wanted to. I just had to give them 4 weeks. Now, if you were in a principal, those were our leads in the show. They're on yearly contracts, and so their contract has an end date, and that can be renewed or not. For me, I could, like I said, could stay as long as I wanted. Some would say that I was stupid.
To stay that long?
To leave.
Oh, okay.
I am currently freelancing. I left a 6-figure job.
Yeah.
And right now I'm just voice teaching.
Yeah. Was that a hard decision for you?
It was a challenging one.
Yeah.
Because I had stability, and but I have had to come to grips with my mind and the way that I do things. I have to be spiritually minded in these things, because I know that God has my best interest at heart, and that He knows the things that I need to be doing.
Yeah.
And He's my agent, and He's going to open up the doors for me, and He's going to provide for me. Even when I am not faithful to Him, He is still so very faithful to me. And what I've found is that whenever I take a leap of faith like this, I've done this before where I left a great paying job that would have kept me there as long as I wanted to be there. But I left to move to New York to grow some more. And doors opened for me there because I took that leap of faith, and God was leading me to take that leap because He had something bigger for me.
Yeah.
And had I stayed in that spot, I would have probably still been there.
Yeah.
Still, I guess doing okay, but I don't want to just do okay.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like when you're in a situation like that, it's not that your soul is dying, but there's parts of it that kind of wither a little bit because you're not being stretched.
Yes.
And because you're still doing what you love in your art, but it's just not as fulfilling anymore. And you're not able to, especially in a show like that, be as creative as you want. Right. And so, yeah, I love that decision for you.
Thank you. It's been a blast so far.
Yeah.
I have no idea, what's going to come next. I've had some cool auditions, but this time has allowed me to, I thought I was going to be teaching more, but I've been literally, since the day I left Lion King, I've been traveling around, seeing friends, doing different gigs. And and such. So I haven't sat still
Yeah.
yet. So we'll see. But I truly trust that God is gonna open up a door.
Yeah. Was it a hard decision to join The King Will Come, just because you're so busy and
That's a
do
great
so many
question.
things?
Actually, yes. It was a little challenging because I didn't know how, with how uncertain my life is and how uncertain actors' lives are. You
Yeah.
know, it's hard to plan a month out.
Right. Yeah.
You know, sometimes 2 weeks out because you just never know.
Yeah. We planned this podcast yesterday.
Yes, yes, truly. Like this is how I operate.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and you have to be flexible in that. And something that I've learned is like I have to be flexible with my schedule in that regard. But because I have so little time to do things with people, I'm not as flexible with like intentional time with people because I take it very, very seriously because I don't get much time with people. And so like I try not to get so upset like when things don't happen when I make plans to do that.
Right.
Because I don't have much time to do that. I really care about that. But you have to remain very flexible in this business because anything could just pop up and you need to be here or there, you know? I just lost my train of thought. Could you please repeat your question?
No, just talking about joining The King Will Come.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
And that's a unique situation where it's not like The King Will Come is currently touring.
Right.
They're all displaced, right? They're kind of bi-coastal.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you can kind of fit into the puzzle. Yeah.
It was a challenging decision because I knew that there were going to be commitments that I needed to make, and having to request off from work and possibly it being denied and not being able to be a part of that, I knew that was going to be a challenge. And this last concert that we did. This is my first retreat with everybody. They've had three or four retreats beforehand. And this is my first retreat in preparation for our concert that we just had last night. And I came in with, with our leaders knowing that I wasn't skeptical, but I was not sure if this is what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I've been praying, for an answer, and I believe that I got my answer, this week. That
awesome.
That I need to be here. I need to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And it'll work out as it needs to. So I'm very grateful that my schedule is so flexible, very flexible now, where I'm able to do more things with The King Will Come.
Cool. Something I noticed in your guys' show that I don't think is your guys' intention, but I see so much, there's 18, 19 members. Something about the way you guys perform together and connect together, I get this overwhelming feeling of wanting to be a better friend myself. I see a lot of friendship on the stage and a lot of love and connection there. And of course, your main message is about connecting with God.
Yes.
But I get this sort of secondary. That's what I thought.
Okay.
Well, Siri agrees. That's great.
Yikes! You quiet now, Siri. Hilarious.
That's funny. I have this little Google Home thing that every once in a while we're like watching a movie and it'll be like, that's what I like. I'm like, chill out. But
truly.
But yeah, I get this sort of secondary message coming across to me that friendship is a vital thing in life. And it's just cool because you guys are up there and half the time like 2 or 3 of you are crying and then other people just kind of go to them and support them and love them. And so yeah, that's a big thing I get out of it is I see you guys interact and I want to be a better friend. I want to be there the second somebody needs me. And I want to be the kind of friend that when someone's crying, they want me to be the shoulder.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I'm so glad you said that. It's something that is so unique, I think, and rare. That's something that this group has. It's oh man, it's such a gift because it's not a we what you saw on stage is not something that was just thrown together and manufactured.
Yeah.
Let's show this.
Right.
It's real.
Yeah.
That's what happens in rehearsal in our what we call the basement.
Yeah.
In the living room. That is what it is. Somebody is crying. You got a group of people over there, if not everybody over there, comforting.
Right.
To remind them that they are not alone. And in those moments where they may be physically alone, it's a representation of who God is to us as a friend, as a father. And so I'm very grateful for the true friendship and relationship that we have as a group, that's so honest and vulnerable and loving, that it shows us as a group the love, the attention, the care that God has for us. It's an extension of that through human form. And for the audience, or for you to experience that is an answer to prayer, because we want people to feel that extension of God's love through us.
Yeah. It's kind of the same thing where, like, you ever be out in public and you see a couple and they're just like maddeningly in love, and you can just feel it. And for some reason, for me at least, that's inspiring. Like when I see two people that are deeply, deeply in love, very present with each other, I'm inspired. That's something I want.
Yes.
Right. And so it's kind of the same thing when you see a few friends that are really close and you see how much they love each other and how much they're instantly there for each other. That's inspiring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. There are those times where you're just like annoyed.
Yeah. Depending on what you're going through.
What you're going through. But in the end, it's because you want that.
Yeah.
That
sometimes
love.
If you're going through heartache, sometimes it's a little too soon to see. Right. But, how's your heart been over the years?
We want to go there?
We can.
Yeah.
Let's ask Siri first, maybe.
Siri, what do you think? Okay, no response. She knows.
Typical.
She takes my heart rate. So my heart, it's been really tender. The last few years. I've been through a lot in my life, and many people have, and everybody's story is different. But my story is very, very hard. I've just dealt with a lot of hardships emotionally, and a lot of childhood trauma that I've experienced has caused me to still operate sometimes mentally, or even in my physical actions as a child, in how I respond to things, because there was a trauma that hadn't been either recognized or hadn't been fully worked through. Yeah. And that is annoying. Yeah. It's so annoying because from a person that recognizes what trauma is and recognizes how to the steps to take for me to realize that I am whole. It's annoying when something triggers that. But something that I think you were there the other night when one of our friends, Mina, mentioned it's kind of like life is like being a screw, not a nail. The screw, it has to, swivel in, and it has these ridges, and it swivels in, and a screw holds something up better than like a nail would. A nail just goes straight through. There's
Yeah.
not much foundation there. It can hold, but like a screw. And so that's what life is like. We think sometimes we're spiraling downward, but in actuality, we're spiraling up. It's just as we go up, it seems like the intensity is a little bit stronger. But if you look down and where you've come from, you've grown so much. You've been able to handle all of this, and you're able to see that there has been healing. But sometimes when you're in the midst of the spinning of the screw, or seeing the same thing, or being triggered, you feel like you haven't grown at all, or you haven't healed, or you're back at the same place. And that's not true. You're growing and evolving with these things. You're learning new things.
Oh, it's so hard to see, though.
It is so hard to see, and so annoying that you can't see it, but it's true, especially when you're doing the work of recognizing that there is a challenge in your life. There is a wound. There is some hurt there that you need to work through. For those that have not, made the decision to work through those things, it's a little bit harder. And sometimes, I'd say life is already hard, but it's a little bit harder when you don't work through those things, because you feel like you have to keep you're working extra hard to keep from dealing with those things. So you're wearing yourself out trying to be this, that, and the other, but not tapping into those things that may be driving you to operate the way you do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you feel like having a tender heart is more a gift or more a curse? Because I feel like I have a very tender heart myself.
It is. It feels like a gift. And it feels like, I wouldn't say a curse, but
a burden at times.
A burden. Especially when you feel people, and sometimes you can't recognize your own stuff from someone else's. And because I care so much about people, I tend to want to carry their burden for them, and I can't. And that breaks my heart. But I want people to experience love. I want them to experience freedom, and I don't want them to have to go through the hard stuff. But we have to.
Right.
We have to go through the hard stuff. And so I'm learning, again, the balance of coming alongside someone and helping them, showing them where they need to take those burdens to, and just being a listening ear, or a friend that takes you to go get something to eat when you need to, get your mind off of something, or just, just being there. And that's what people, that's what people need. But then the blessing of having this tender heart, I'd say that's the blessing. The challenge and the burden is, it hurts. It hurts. And sometimes I feel like an oddball or weird, because I feel so strongly. And due to the trauma that I've walked through, I think, just more aware of things, and sometimes too aware, that I think certain things are pointed toward me, or actions or reactions are pointed toward me, and have nothing to do with me. But because of the lens of trauma, I am, offended or triggered. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with me, that action or not. And so I've come to be comfortable with asking, is this what you meant? I hate that, because I have been a very passive aggressive person, not direct at all. I hate confrontation, but I'm learning that I have to be okay with that, in order to grow, in order for me to help the little Isaiah that's trying to protect me know that I am good and I can protect myself and that I can handle it from here.
Right.
But if I don't deal with those things, the little Isaiah would keep running the show.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that's really important to be able to ask those uncomfortable, like, hey, sorry, dude, is that, what do you mean when you say this? You know, because usually it's a miscommunication. Usually they're trying to get something across and you're just receiving it in a different way.
Yes.
Right. I had a little experience yesterday at church where, and maybe different in your church. Our church is very like, it's 2 hours, 2 hours, then we're done. It's long enough. Let's be done. So culturally, it's not taboo, but it's kind of frowned on to go over, especially the second hour. First hour can go a little long, and then the second hour is cut, right? So second hour, we're supposed to end at 3:30. It's like 3:35, and I'm fine if I can tell someone's wrapping up, but I could tell he was like getting into something new, and I was like, and I was front row, and I was like, I can feel that everyone's like wanting to leave, but I was like, I'll fall on the sword. So I was just like, hey, just heads up, bro, it's 3:35. And he was like visibly upset. And he was like, I got it. Please don't disturb the spirit. and then he wrapped up. But then afterwards he came and talked to me. He's like, hey, sorry, bro. I know that was really aggressive of me. He's like, I just get frustrated because people are coming in late to my class. And I was like, dude, I totally get it. It was no disrespect. I just don't think the answer is to punish them by going longer. Right. But then it was all love.
Yes.
Right. But it was not so much for me, but potentially a very uncomfortable conversation. Right. But it was so simple. We resolved it in 20 seconds.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I was just putting myself in those shoes. I'm like, oh God, I'm over here sweating. Like, oh my gosh, how did it end? How did it end?
this whole story is triggering.
Right. Because it's like you create these stories in your brain of how things, and it's always the worst case scenario in preparation, so that if that worst case scenario happens, you're already prepared for it. And almost 99% of the time, it's never that.
Yeah, and it always goes back to this dark place of like, well, he was aggressive with me because he doesn't like me, because I'm stupid, or because I'm not worthy of love, or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like, never mind what he might be going through,
right,
or what he's thinking. You know? I love what you were saying about having a tender heart and how it's a blessing. In my head, it's 6 months ago, but I think it was more like 10 months ago. I went through a pretty horrible breakup, and
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And I was talking, this was like a month ago. I was talking to a buddy about it just at like In-N-Out Burger, and I started to break down, and I'm like, why did I choose to do this here? And I was like, part of my, not shame, but part of my embarrassment is I feel like I should be fully over it by now, because it was not a long relationship to begin with. But my buddy was so loving, and he was like, no, dude, you'll be over it when you're ready to be over it, and you shouldn't like feel bad for however long it takes. And that was just exactly what I needed to hear, because I've at numerous times felt like, gosh, dude, what's my problem? Like, am I that like overly sensitive that I can't like just move on when she probably moved on 7 months ago? You know?
Yeah. I understand that, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think we just put so much pressure on, I don't know, I think society just has put so much pressure on not being sensitive. And I think it's a bunch of baloney. Yeah. Because we are all so sensitive in our different ways. And I feel like if we were to honor that sensitivity a little bit better, there would be a an emotional healthiness that we've never seen before, that I think we could all like truly benefit from. And I think the community of human beings would be more loving and caring toward each other if we were honoring our own sensitivity and honoring the sensitivity of others. And not expecting someone to be quote unquote strong with this situation or that situation, and just allowing the person to just be as they are in that, and allow them the time that they need to process and heal.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I think you could argue that being really sensitive and emotional and showing all those really hard feelings is really strong, you know, like because I like what you said, that really everyone's sensitive, you know, and if your MO is to, when you feel emotions, go numb them, you're just as sensitive as anyone else.
Absolutely.
Right? You're just not, you're afraid to show it.
Yes.
And so yeah, I think that's like, and for me, I think a lot of people, like, even though if I see somebody crying, like my immediate reaction is grace and love. And like, I want to hopefully help them. Or if I don't know them from afar, like I'm just, you know, hoping the best for them. But then when it's me and I'm crying in In-N-Out Burger, I'm like, oh, everyone's judging me. Everyone thinks I'm a mess, or I can't handle my life,
right,
you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish, it's funny, I've talked about this on like the last 3 episodes, but I just wish it was easier to give yourself the kind of grace you give other people so effortlessly.
Goodness. When you figure it out, you just let me know.
Yeah. I'll send you a text.
Oh my goodness.
Like, bro, I got to figure it out.
It's so hard. It's so hard. We just, and you know what? This is something this is actually a tough pill for me to swallow right now, but I feel like it's actually a form of pride sometimes when we don't give ourselves, grace. And we hold ourselves to this standard of whatever the standard is, and then that standard is gone when it comes to someone else. You know what I'm saying? But if God, someone said this the other day, what gives you the right to be judging or punishing yourself if God is not judging or punishing you?
Yeah, that's a good point.
What gives you the right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, I really don't have a right to do that, especially if he's not.
Yeah.
And he has the final say, and his word overrides our word, then I'm just going to go with that, with what he says. If he's forgotten about it, then I'm going to forget about it. But it's hard for us humans because we remind each other. Right. You hurt me. I forgive you, but I'm going to remind you. Yeah. You know, things are going to be different, you know, and it's not a forgive and forget. It's a forgive, and I'm going to maneuver, you know, around this. So when you figure it out, like I said.
I think part of the reason it's so hard is because we're so familiar with our weaknesses. Yes. And so every day we're just constantly reminded. We have a bad thought and we're reminded. We have a little moment of, I feel like I have these moments all the time where I'm not in a bad mood, but I'm not in a great mood. And sometimes there's not a specific reason. And then I get bugged that I'm bugged. Yep. And I'm like, what is my problem? I have so much to be grateful for. I've had a pretty good day, but I'm just kind of in a funk. I don't know. I'm just in my head. Yep. And I think that perpetuates the negative self-talk.
Absolutely.
Because you're like, dude, what's my problem? I should be. Yeah. Yeah. But instead of just like almost just kind of taking it on the chin and being like, this will smooth out, you know, because it always does. Yeah. You know. Yeah. But I call it bad brain when I'm in that
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in that space.
Yeah.
I say
Love that.
I just got bad brain.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's okay.
It'll pass.
Have a spoonful of ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, just a couple more questions. What is the thing you love the most about yourself?
The way I love others.
Yeah, yeah. Has that always come easy to you?
No. Because a lot of it growing up and in my younger years was to earn love. So loving extra hard, showing extra effort, doing extra things so that, people could see the good in me and would love me back. Yeah, I think that's my answer.
That's awesome. That's such a beautiful thing, because you're a person that has been blessed with many gifts and talents, but that's got to be the most important one, right? And the cool thing is, with your other gifts of singing and your ability to lead groups, that just facilitates your ability to love people, right? So they they end up going hand in hand, and that's hopefully what we do with all of our talents, right? We sort of consecrate them for a greater good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, last question. This is kind of tricky. It's easier with people that know me better, but I like to end the episode in asking you, if we could kind of switch roles, what's one question you would ask me?
Oh, I love that. Ooh, that's good. What is something that is healing your heart now in this season that you're in?
I think for me, I need like daily micro healings, right? So I try to find it in anything I can. And to me, healing is often synonymous with joy. And so I try to find joy in as many things as I can. And I think I struggle when I put all of my joy into one thing and don't allow myself to find it elsewhere, right? Whether that's a relationship or a hobby, a passion, right? And so for me, like, if I can find joy in my podcast, enjoy my friendships, enjoy my church, enjoy my relationship with my parents, enjoy in taking in beautiful media, joy in going for a walk. If I can do all of these things, like I said, I feel like I need daily micro healings,
I love that.
And so some days, I listen to a song and it just rips me open, and I'm like, oh, that person that I've never met and never will meet is going through what feels like the exact same pain as me. And that's really healing.
Yeah.
I get the same thing from books. I'm reading this book, Love in the Time of Cholera. And it's just about this love story in the early 1900s, but it's written so beautifully, and there's so many parts that talk about just this love that is killing this person. It's just too much to handle, and it's taken over his life. And some of it's a little more dramatic than what I'm going through, but there are certain lines that just speak to me, right? And I'll tell you what, though, I think the most healing I find outside of God, but I feel like God is in everything, is through my friendships. Is just being with somebody, talking with them, opening up. That's why I selfishly love doing this podcast, right? Because I get to spend an hour or two with somebody with no distractions, and we can just be there.
Yes.
And I've been so blessed to have so many close friendships. So I feel like no matter what I'm going through, I'll never be fully down and out.
Yeah.
You know, like I can go through a depressive episode, but it's never going to turn chronic.
Yeah.
Because of the support system I have. Yeah.
I love that. Wow.
Thanks, man.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Truly.
Well, Isaiah, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
Just a last minute. I know you're super busy and doing a lot of stuff, but it meant a lot.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. Yeah. Truly.
Where can people connect with you if they want to see your shows, your art, your music, your worship?
So I try to post a lot on my Instagram. So Instagram is Sang, S-A-N-G, Isaiah, I-S-A-I-A-H. And you can find me on Instagram. I have a TikTok. I don't know how that works yet. So I'm gonna hire somebody to help me. Okay. And they can handle that. But my TikTok, I think, is my name, Isaiah Bailey. And Facebook. Do people still do Facebook?
You know what? There's a demographic out there for it.
There is a demographic out there for it. Like my Instagram posts to my Facebook, but I'm not really on there a lot. But there is a Facebook page as well. Also my website, isaiahbailey.com.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. We'll see you guys.